honor the request for the waiver on room tax. As a DP Executive Council, we said we cannot indicate in a letter of comfort to a developer that government will endeavor to do X, Y, Z, and then 3 years after or 4 years after come and say, no, we're not going to live up to that commitment. Therefore, the advice was sent back to the departments and said, rewrite the letter whereby you then tell the developer that under the present ordinances it cannot be done, but based on the letter of comfort, government is still planning on living up to its commitment. That advice never came back to the Executive Council between January, early January, mid-January to June 8th. All of a sudden, government changed and this advice appeared either on an agenda or this advice was signed off with the original letter that was there in the file to go out to West End. The question that needs to be answered is, it was not handled, this particular letter, by a DP administration, and the question that needs to be answered by the National Alliance administration, did they handle this particular letter?
They've already said they never saw it, knew nothing about it, didn't handle it. They only got a copy of that letter from Western.
Then something is really strange in the administration of government, that a letter of this nature, Eddie, went out to a resort without it being approved by the Executive Council, because every letter that goes out from the administration of government needs to be approved by the Executive Council. It's either in an Executive Council meeting or it needs to be signed off by 3 commissioners, and then the island secretary and the governor signs it off. No one cannot tell me that this letter went out without an Executive Council approval. If this letter went out without an Executive Council approval, then there's something drastically wrong within the administration of government.
Such a letter would be signed by the Lieutenant Governor and the Island Secretary.
Correct, and before the Lieutenant Governor and the Island Secretary affix their signature to a letter of that effect, there must be either an Executive Council decision of when it was kept, Executive Council meeting of Tuesday, June 14th, 2009, or there should be an advice with signatures of 3 commissioners plus a signature of the Lieutenant Governor and the Island Secretary to that particular document, which then justifies that letter going out.
And if I can just add to that, the point that Councilman Roy Marlin raised is the one that I wanted to stress. Indeed, the letter is signed, any letter going out on behalf of the Executive Council is signed by the Island Secretary and the Lieutenant Governor, and these persons need to ensure that that letter is based on a decision taken by the Executive Council. And if it was a decision taken back some time, then those 2 persons needed to also ensure that the letter reflects the decision as taken by the Executive Council whenever that was. In addition to the meeting of the 22nd of January, in which this proposal was once again put on the table of the Executive Council, the following week, or in fact 5 days later, when that particular resolution list of the Executive Council of January the 22nd was being reviewed, the Executive Council on the 27th of January said, wait a minute, the way that it has been recorded is not in keeping with the discussion in the Executive Council. Please have it recorded that the Executive Council in this case is only taking note of the fact that the department advised that on the basis of the current ordinance that no waiver could be given, but at the same time, again, the government stressed that the matter of the change to the ordinance needed to take place and that the Department of Legal Affairs needed to finalize that matter. So it's following those 2 decisions, one of the 22nd and one of the 27th, that then eventually, as Councilman Roy Marlin indicated, this letter surfaced somewhere in the latter part of June. Even surfacing then, again, an issue of that nature, I believe that the administration would have, and if not the administration, definitely the Island Secretary and Lieutenant Governor would have touched base with the then new government in